For those of you who don't know, the Montgomery family has a culture where we like to party. And sometimes the sun comes up to let us know that we've been partying a little too long. So, with that in mind, I wrote this down just to make sure that I'm respectful of your time. Ed Montgomery was a father figure to me, against his will. I mean, I get it. Who adopts a 29-year-old white man? And Ed didn't know this, but as a child, I was not raised. All of the authorities in my life that were supposed to love me and protect me chose not to. It was a conscious decision. I was abused, raped, neglected, trafficked, and I had spent my childhood trying to not be noticed and avoiding adults because they weren't safe. I came to the Lord and spent my 20s kind of being raised. I was taught how to seek God and how to serve in church and help them run all their programs, but I wasn't really shown how to be a man. I had already lived in 40 different places, not including the times that I was homeless. And in fact, I was sleeping in my car when Ed and Dina made their house in Marietta my 41st place. And you know what I did when I became a part of the family? The first thing I did was to get them in trouble at church by referring to Ed as my pastor. I mean, later that week, Bishop Boone acknowledged that he was playing that role in my life and in essence affirmed that role. But he didn't know that was going to happen. But you know what Ed did? He and Mom agreed that this young man has never had a home base, and we're going to be that for him. During the time that I lived with them, I learned some things from Ed Montgomery. First, Ed couldn't walk past Mom without grabbing her and trying to dance with her. It was common to hear, "Ed, I'm cooking." Ed taught me that old cliche that love changes over time is not true, in the way that people use it as an excuse to allow passion to fade. Proverbs 5:18-19 says to be intoxicated or captivated by the love of your wife. Ed Montgomery showed me that a godly husband is intentionally passionate about his wife. Make a conscious decision to focus on what you love about your spouse and always assume positive intent from your spouse and cover them with your love where they fall short. For just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ, we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. That's Romans 12:4-5. It was so different for me to see, but Mom was Ed's mouthpiece. And some people would act like she wasn't being submitted to Ed or something like that because she was so verbal, but what I saw was a woman who was free to be her. And what I saw at home was a woman who so treasured the words that Ed spoke that when he did speak, she would snap to attention in order to make sure that she was in alignment with him. This is what I saw. Ooh, yes, Eddie? Mom, I would not have known what an amazing wife looks like. I would not have recognized Tiffany if it wasn't for you. And Ed is the one that allowed me to see that by allowing you to be you. I told you I wasn't going to make it through this. Ed Montgomery showed me that a godly husband loves like Jesus, not like the Father. And this was a revelation that God was able to give me because of the example of Ed Montgomery. The difference between loving like Jesus and loving like the Father. Jesus said that he was the vine and the Father was the gardener. As a husband, it's not my job to correct my wife or to prune my wife. It's my job to love my wife, provide a place of stability and connection so that God can produce fruit through her, and she becomes more like who he created her to be rather than who the world beat her into. Look, it's a law of life that if you put your work in early, you don't have to work as hard late. And when I became part of the family, David was already 14 and 6'4". So I didn't get to see any of the whooping stories. And while it's true that you can't build a house without a hammer, when the house is already built, all you need are little adjustments like sandpaper. I can't remember, but I believe it was his junior year in high school. David got grounded. And not because he did something bad, but because he didn't do his best. And I realized for the first time in my life that being grounded sucks. Because while David was grounded, we were washing dishes together and we were having fun and joking around like we always do. And either Mom or Ed was like, don't joke with him, Joe Capri, he's grounded. I didn't realize that the whole house was grounded because David was. And I learned what 1 Corinthians 12 means when it says that when one part suffers, every part suffers with it. Ed Montgomery showed me that a godly father uses the rod to drive out foolishness that sin nature attaches to your child's heart. He uses hedge clippers or a saw to cut off branches that will allow your child to not bear as much fruit as they should, and smaller, more delicate tools to prune a fruitful branch, to help it be more connected to the vine from which it can produce fruit. A godly father uses his strength under control and the right tools for the right job. You know, the word for wisdom in the Bible is the same word that means skill. Ed Montgomery had wisdom from the Lord in how to be a husband and a father. I have to tell you that I'm glad it's been almost a month, because I'm a major weeper and I'm trying to get through this without crying. But Ed Montgomery was my hero. I'm grateful for his presence in my life, and I hope that he has received crowns that he can present to the Lord because of the fruit of my life. I love you, Ed. See you soon.